lunch. It's the session before lunch, the one after lunch are always the most difficult ones. But I'm sure the panel that we have up right now is going to make it worthwhile. My name is Eugenie Kaitesi. I am from the University of Pretoria, an associate professor of food science and food biochemistry particularly. I am home because this is my home. Those who knows my name indicates just where I am. I'm from Rwanda. So this is the heartbeat. I've been fortunate to be part of this journey, and I'm hoping that we will continue to learn together. So I will invite our panelists for the next session to come up just to save time. One by one. I think we'll start one by one, and they will have they'll give us their talks, summarize their talks if they can, and then we'll then have a session for all of them, or 4 of them. They will have a discussion, and then if time allows us, we'll get some questions from the audience. So in a nutshell, we'll do it in 3 phases. So the first, the panel is going to talk about business models and approaches to increase smallholder farmer income per hectare. So what we're going to discuss is how can we get the best out of farming for the farmers. So we put farmers at the center of the discussion. So we hear lessons learned from different places and borrow a lift from that and see how we will go forward from there. We'll start with Marcus. Please, if you can join us. Marcus has a wealth of experience in business and in farming. He is the CEO of Rise Africa. So over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, the organizers, and it's nice to be here, joining you all. There's a lot of experts here, so I have some good knowledge in agriculture. Just for you to know, I'm Brazilian. I'm 34 years in Africa, 26 years doing agribusiness, participating in the agribusiness sector, supplying equipment, and most recently, we start developing farming concepts in Kenya, starting with. So this is one of the projects that we have. We call it bulk grain production. There is some of our partners there, Campo from Brazil, BGC, which is our company, and Forest Foods, that is one of our farm concepts. So Leaf Africa is our company, and they are basically bringing a lot of innovation, especially from Brazil, because that's where we're coming from. And we like to more or less copy and paste what's successfully happening in Brazil and bring it into the Africa context, sub-Saharan Africa especially, which is very similar to the Brazilian environment. Anyway, this is there you are. So anyway, today we have a problem. Thank you. We have a problem today, which is basically caused by the COVID, also the European conflict, and which affected the price of the commodities, as well as the national and international charges on freight, which became very unstable. So, it's known that large economies like China and India have been packing up food left, right, and center in a protection to their countries. So Africa, unfortunately, with all this land that we have available for production, is a net import of food. If you see, Kenya alone is 44% what they eat, it's imported. 31% in the whole Africa, and 21% sub-Saharan Africa. So this is data from United Nations. So that is one situation. This is the, we have all, of course, because there is challenges, there is opportunities, and therefore we want to change the current status, especially the smallholder farmer, as you can see there on the picture, and all of you know very well what is going through, to what is our proposal, basically mechanization and improvement of overall the situation of the agriculture in Africa in all scale. I'm trying to be fast, so my apologies. The solution, basically, we create a consortium of companies. Today we are over 30 companies already, and we are going to reach about 50. Basically bringing the solution, a total solution for the agribusiness, or agriculture and livestock in Africa. So, and our approach is to reduce the costs of production, high quality food, ensuring high nutritional value, and basically producing in large quantities, yeah, and process whatever we can locally for the local markets. We want very much to replace imports. That is what our first goal, and then turn Africa into an exporter of food. What happened in Brazil in the 70s? Late 70s, Brazil is also an importer of food, and today is the second biggest producer and exporter, following only United States. So, and this whatever happened there can be replicated easily here. It's tropical to tropic, so it's our solutions have been readjusted from what we copied from the North Hemisphere, and adapted to the Brazilian condition, which is tropical, like is sub-Saharan Africa. So that is basically, yeah. And we want to replace progressively chemicals in all production phases, maximizing also renewable energies. Oops. Has his own wishes. Who we are, basically, this is one of our farms in Kenya. In central Kenya, this is, maybe some of you already heard, some not, syntropic agroforestry. So we have our first pilot in central Kenya. It's about 10 acres. And we have a second pilot in around Nairobi, the same approach. And we have the third one now around Nairobi again. And we are looking now for another 2 sites, one in the coast and one again not very far from Nairobi, because we want to be near to the major consuming centers. And here, on syntropic agroforestry, which is a concept that initiated in Brazil, and we are one of the initiators in East and Central Africa. And it's basically to produce premium food. Zero fertilizer, zero chemicals, and everything is about regeneration of the soils. So the good news is there is a lot of problem with soils, but the good news is that the soils can be regenerated and doesn't take that long. 2-3 years we have excellent soils again, but we're using proper techniques, technology, and etc. So here we have basically in 1 hectare around 40 different crops. So this is our small and medium scale type of farming. This is a photo from Brazil. You see there coffee on the pivot, on the central pivot, and soya in front. And basically our experience is based on Campo from Brazil, which was created in the late 70s by the military government to transform a region in central Brazil, the size of Uganda. So, and that land in the late 70s was worth nothing, or very little, and today is worth one of the biggest bread baskets in Brazil. It's in our, what we call our cerrado, which is a corresponding type of environment than our savanna here in Africa. And that was non-productive land, and now it's one of, as I said, one of the bread baskets of Brazil. So we want to use the same approach in Africa. Oops. this thing has its own life. Okay, our approach. Basically, what we want is really to use the latest, what is happening in Brazil and any other place in the world that brings innovation and things that work properly. Like conservation agriculture, zero tillage, other people talked before about that. Mixed farming, we don't like monoculture. And there you can see on that thing there, basically planting maize and pasture together. Yeah, and it's a very good technique that because the goal ultimately is to keep the soils covered year round. Yeah, soils should never be uncovered, and so you have to be protecting the microorganisms on the soils. So as I said, I mean, we want progressively to replace fertilizers and pesticides in our large-scale farms. On the small-scale farms, we don't use at all. On the large scale, we may need, as the colleague was saying, that we need to analyze the thing case by case. So in some cases, we may need to start with chemical fertilizer, chemical application, but progressively we want to migrate to zero synthetics. So yeah, all the possibilities, like you can see the photo of the cattle there. This is the integration livestock, forest and crops. It's a fantastic thing for recovering soils. It's being used in Brazil in many places, and it's very successful. Basically, it's again an agroforestry project in different scale, different approach. Irrigation options, I mean, without water there's no agriculture, and we believe that we should utilize properly the water but irrigate, because with irrigation, you know, is an insurance policy. With irrigation, you can have two crops per year, most likely, sometimes 3 crops per year. So this is money in the pocket of the farmer, and the recovered investment is quite short. Post-harvesting solutions, I mean, basically, you know that if you don't keep properly the crop after you harvest, you lose a lot. It's known that in Africa, a smallholder farmer especially loses between 20 to 40% of their crop after harvesting. Yeah? And they lose another 20 to 30% on planting. So I mean, the smallholder farmer is in a real trouble. So I mean, we bring these solutions, and we want to incorporate smallholder farmers. Renewable energies come without speaking. Here, I'm going to jump this, if I manage. This is basically our pillars. This project, bulk grain production, has 4 pillars, and one pillar is our consortium. The second pillar is our consortium is many companies. The second pillar is the off-taker partners. Then the landowner partner. For me, the biggest challenge in Africa is land, despite of a lot of land being available, but which land does not have conflict. So this is something, considerations that we have, and we bring on board when we offer to investors, that we understand the culture in Africa, and we know in many instances how to mitigate issues. Financing partners come with, again, without saying, and there's a lot of people saying there's a lot of money for Africa in agriculture. I'm still looking for the money. I don't know where to find it. So, but we hope there is some good signs in the end of the tunnel, and we hope that this money is really going finally to show up. So I'm going to jump up these things here. I mean, this is our vision for our business. This is important slide there. You see, this is an example of our farms they could be. Yeah, I mean, let's say we are talking about medium and large scale. Our project of forest foods is small and medium scale, so 20 acres to 150, 200 acres. While this here is 1,000 hectares to 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, doesn't matter. So, and we want to basically on the center, or the 90% of the project to cultivate cereals and other things that the investor wants, and do trial plots like integration livestock, forest foods, fisheries, any other type of trial that can be proven viable and profitable for the farmer or for the unity. and then we expand that and reduce the total area of the, let's say, production of maize and soya. Then of course we're going to have demonstration plots because we want to train smallholder farmers around the project. We have to have the storage, drying, cleaning, agro-processing, validation. I believe that a lot of the production can be processed locally, and we want to really to develop rural areas. You know, not to bring in crops into the center, I mean, big cities like Nairobi or Kigali, but process there, develop that rural area. So the agro shop is basically in the intention that the smallholder farmer bring their produce, we pay them properly, and they can also buy things for their unities. So you see here these round circles, they basically are smallholder farmer groups that we intend to recruit and train them to do what the nucleus will do, and make sure that they make more money using our techniques and technology. We are going to advance them inputs, seeds, and etc. We are going to rent them equipment, and then they start understanding the mechanization, learning the mechanization, and eventually they become mechanized because they are going to make more money with that. So I don't think there's nothing need to be for free for smallholder farmers. They can pay for their development like anybody else does. So we want the smallholder farmers, and we believe that we can cause a very large impact into the communities around our nucleus farms. Yeah, so this is some of our partners, our consortium partners, yeah, and this is me, you can see it. And this photo is a beautiful photo that you can see what is the integration livestock, forest and crops. The cattle that basically is grazing there in Brazil, they call it neutron carbon cattle, yeah, because the forest, the grass, the whole environment neutralize whatever effect the cows do into the environment. Therefore, I mean, this is becoming a very interesting approach, especially in depleted soils, and it's being used a lot in Brazil where there was a lot of overgrazing. So, I mean, this is one of the type of approaches that we want to use to bring more development into the agriculture in Africa. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Round of applause for Carlos. Great lessons to learn. I will invite Dr. Nimrod to join us again. He has already shared a few of the lessons that we can borrow from Israel and his community. So I will invite him to expand on that in the next 8 minutes if we can.
Thank you. I will do my best. I just need the presentation. Okay, that's great. So before I start, I just we had done how we had leave Africa, right? Africa, talking about business, and as one who began as a farmer, I always saw the business as the core way of changing things. So whatever I'm going to speak about is the background is it must be economically feasible and very successful, or there will be nothing. Okay, so just to begin, the difference that I see between developing economies and developed economies is developed economies, they already have lots of export. They have many sectors and they export a lot. In developing economies, you have very often 50 to 80% of the economy is based on agriculture and very little export of agro-produce and such things. So I hope we can change it. We must. Okay, just all right, it is jumping. Okay, so why there is little export? Many reasons. Note that, and these are just a few of the reasons. And I wrote technology first, but there are many more. Technology is not the reason, or not the main one, as I spoke before. And in Israel, we did export already 60, 70 years ago, and it was the #1 export industry from Israel for many years. So what do we need to have export? We need quality, we need quantity, we need market access. Those are the minimum basic things that we need. Go global or die local. You don't have to go global, but you can do marketing to premium markets. For example, in Rwanda, in Africa, but it must be a premium market. And saying global, it's just that the concept is go to where the prices are the best. If you can get to where the prices are the best, everything is open before you. If you can't, you have a problem. So this is an example of just the slide before is about Dream Valley, which I mentioned before. And Dream Valley, a company I established, is really coming to make this change. And what is the change? The change is to say we accept and understand that farmers have limitations. Not only farmers, the input providers have limitations. For example, in Africa, many of them don't want to come. If they want to come, they can't come. They don't have access, they don't know how to sell, and so on. If you are an off-taker, again, you have problems. So many people in the value chain, all of them having problems, and so we are stuck. We is everybody. It's a lose-lose game. What Dream Valley is doing is really saying, we are going to take it end to end, help the input providers to get into Africa, to work with smallholders, and then help the farmer, help the harvest, help the packing house, the exporters, the importers, everybody. So there is, the value chain is complete, nothing is broken. And if something doesn't work well, it's us. So we fix it for next time. Okay? Well, okay, now it's going to jump. What we can see here is a project in Senegal, which I spoke about before. You should know, this project is coming with 40 years of experience in the Israeli agro sector and 30 years in the agrotech industry. So it may look fast, and it was very fast and successful. And what we did here is we worked with smallhold farmers, very big projects. This is from Google Map, and like the yellow and the green circles is about 2 and 3 miles. So it's really big projects. But what was important, we got to understand that we can work with hundreds of farmers almost instantly. And we can turn them almost instantly into an instant success. In this case, we chose mangoes. Why? Because if you can do it with mangoes, you can do it with everything. It is the most challenging, perishable, fresh produce. And we need to work on this. Okay, so the results were really remarkable. Immediately, the income of farmers jumped by twice, 200%, and so did the national export of Senegal, of mangoes. Now, mango is the #1 export of Senegal. It's something meaningful. And it shows how much more is the potential, because that was so little in so little time. We should also remember, just a moment, let's jump again, because if I can, okay, I'm going to jump on this one. This is important. After the pilot in 2021, in 2022, we didn't continue. It was a pilot, it was successful, and we didn't continue, mainly because Senegal didn't show any special interest in continuing. So we said, okay, we're going to look, first of all, to work on ourselves. I did establish Dream Valley company at that time, and what happened next was also very teaching, and that is the export of Senegal dropped back to the baseline, meaning they thought that they could continue with just the same, even with no value chain or going back to the same value chain, but reality was cruel. And reality shows that immediately they went back to the baseline. So this should teach us, we do need those business models, we do need to work together, and it's not one or the other. This is a lose-lose, and Senegalese people are losing, all of us are losing by not cooperating properly. So go global or die local is really a theme, and wherever I'm going, I'm saying we want to do export. By the way, don't worry. When you do export, there is plenty remaining for the local market. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nimrod, for again inspiring us to do more. May I please request the next two presenters to join me on the platform? I think it will cut down the time of waiting.
Where are you?
Mr. Prince Welgana and Dr. Wilson. Thank you so much. I think Prince Well can join us right away. And we've had interesting stories from the other side of the world. A story from home now. Welcome. And isn't he looking great? Challenging us to go back.
Hi, my name is Chifoti Prince. I'm from Cameroon. It's amazing what we are seeing here today. It's been so quiet. What's happening? Can you say something? We are here for farming. Farmers are active. We are loving people. Just make some noise. Just wave for something. Just wave. Let's wave. Let's wave. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because of time, I don't think the slides are necessary. You can just show whatever you want to show. But I'm here to represent the interests of the farmers. I'm an agricultural consultant. I've visited a minimum of 80 villages in my country. Minimum. I'm one of those people who has gone to the deepest part of the forest. I used to be on the bike for 7 hours just to go and meet farmers. The truth is that when we come to conferences like this, we don't say the truth. Because a lot of us, when we left home, we went to big schools and became doctors and professors. Some had a lot of money to put big farming, industrial farming, and had so much in agriculture. But the truth is, very few of us have gone deep into the villages to know what smallholder farmers go through. That is the truth. And that is why I'm here today to tell you. Yeah, thank you. I'm speaking from experience. When you go online, you find me out, the 40 Prince. They call me the celebrity farmer in my country. And I just won an award. And why did I win? Because I'm somebody who is very passionate about agriculture. I speak about agriculture, I have videos online. I'm very passionate about it. Even living in a home where we did cocoa. My parents would not make, maybe we are talking about export right now, but we are exporting cocoa. Why do we have cocoa farmers still poor? Are we not exporting cocoa? We are exporting coffee. We are doing all these things. Why are smallholder farmers still poor? Because the system is broken. The system is broken. For any model to work, there are solutions, we must find them. And every one of us have a role to play. After this conference, we should go back and ask ourselves, what is the role we have to play for the model to work? The purpose why we're here, what is a business model? The business model simply is making profit. What you're doing to make profit. If I'm growing maize, how do I sell my maize to make profit? And the key thing here is to do what? Is to minimize input and maximize profit. It's about income and expenditure. So how do we reduce expenditure? This is the problem with Africa. How do we reduce expenditure? But he was here and he said, he's been in Africa. He said there's money in Africa in agriculture, and he's not seen that. And it's true. Many investors have come to Africa, they've not seen the money. Because the challenges are enormous, from land issues to bad roads, to bad policies, to bad government. The system is broken. So no matter whatever you bring as a policy, Dr. Nimo did a good research and he was not called. Why? Because of the political situation, or maybe whatever reason. I'm here to tell you a story about Mr. Babila. It's in my village, one extreme village. In my village, I don't know, extreme village, not my village. His name is Mr. Babila. I went to this community as a consultant to help a woman establish her farm. And after this, I decided to walk around and just talk to smallholders. Because they are always there, they are very loving people. When you go, they'll just gather, hey, where are you from? You are doing agriculture, oh, come and teach me how to do this. And I spoke with them and I saw what they were going through. Poverty, misery, they had nothing to eat. But they are farmers. Some of them have 2 hectares. They have limited resources. They were so poor. But I met this one amazing person, Mr. Babila. Mr. Babila was so healthy. You need to see a typical Cameroonian. He was so huge and bulky. That's how we are. There's a lot of food in Cameroon. So when I met Mr. Babila, I asked him, do you do agriculture? He said yes. He said he was a teacher, but he left teaching to do agriculture for good. And I was like, wow. But I came to this community and everybody complained. Everybody said there's poverty. What is your secret? And that is where I understood there is a flow chart. There is a flow chart. And with this flow chart, those who respect it and those who have the opportunity, because it's not about respecting it, some don't have the opportunity. The flow chart is simple. We have to develop what? He had partners. When Mr. Babila was a teacher, he had partners. He had government organizations, people he knew. So with this organization, they were able to assist him with seeds. He knew NGOs. And through these NGOs, while he was a teacher, he attended workshops and gained skills. And while Mr. Babila was a teacher, he had customers. And these customers were the parents of the kids he taught. So he had built a good network. So he had covered, he had something to deliver. So when Mr. Babila got into agriculture, he had resources others did not have. Both the physical and any spiritual, because he had the prayers of his students, I don't know. Yeah. So Mr. Babila was doing extremely well. And Mr. Babila's success too was about what? Mr. Babila understood the customers he was targeting, what to produce, where to produce. Mr. Babila understood. He understood that agriculture is a business. Most of us, we sit here every day and talk about agriculture. People don't consider it in Africa. I'm saying this is a fact. I've been in villages. I've been in so many places. We don't see agriculture as a business. We see agriculture as a way of life. We were in the family where they did agriculture. Every one of us want to do agriculture. So we don't see it as a business. If we saw agriculture as a business, before I start an agricultural project, I should have 2 things in mind. Either I develop a business concept or a business plan. If it's a project below $5,000, it's a business concept. If it's above $5,000, it's a business plan. And this business plan has everything in it. The sustainability of the project, the marketing, everything. And if at the end of you drafting this plan, it's not feasible, you drop it. But we don't do this. Ask how many farmers. If you're a small-scale farmer here, smallholder farmer, I don't know. Can you just wave? Can you wave? Is there a smallholder farmer? Please, you can ask. Just do a sample. Ask how many of them have a real business plan they are updating, looking at the challenges and bringing solutions to change. How many of them? Go to the villages. How many of them? So we are here today to speak about different models and talk how beautiful they are. We are going to do this. A lot of companies came from abroad to find solutions in Africa. At the end of the day, they were so frustrated. I'm telling you, 90% of all the initiatives we see here today won't work in Africa because the system needs to be fixed.
Thank you.
We are here today talking about value chain. What the key way for us to be able to do what to leverage from business model, for us to make profit, because at the end of the day, it's profit. Listen to this, profit. We have academicians here, they're talking a lot of very big words. But the young people here, those who are not in the agricultural sector, the key word is profit. It's profit. So how do we do it? There is a food system. It's a food system. We must transform it from the producer, the roads. And the most devastating thing, let me say this from my experience, is the farm to market roads. Tell me about imagine that you have a good model. Okay, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do. And at the end of the day, after producing, you don't even have a goal to carry your produce to the market. And this is the same situation all over Africa. We don't invest money in developmental activities because we want the easy way out of life. Countries will set 10 years project to build roads to farms, 10 years. Some will set 50 years project. In Africa, what do? We invest money in capacity building and workshops. How would that help us? 90% of farmers don't have roads. We are here, you know, some of you went to farms and carry things on your head. You are getting injuries. So how do you expect even the farmer to get the produce? And we are talking about export. How do we have a competitive edge with those abroad? When after spending everything, you transport, you spend, you produce, you spend, you have to take somewhere the middleman will buy at a very low price, and then you have to ship abroad to meet somebody who has very good roads. In this country, let's say the US farmers, they had a vehicle to transport, they had the support, subventions, they had bailouts, they had subsidies. Do we have that here? So how do we even compete with them? Let me tell you, the only reason we are competing with cocoa, we are supplying, that is because we are the ones producing cocoa, it's the raw material, so they need the raw material. That's the only reason why we can sell cocoa, coffee, and the rest. But trust me, if we want to compete in terms of rice, we ship rice abroad to Cameroon. 70% of our rice, but Cameroon is called African miniature. It means everything that can be found in Africa is found in Cameroon. Everything. It's a fact. We have 5 agroecological zones. We have soils like lands like never before, from savannah to everything. But we ship, we bring in 70% of our rice from the US. Let's assume that we want to compete to sell rice in the US too. Okay, we want to ship rice. How do we compete? Imagine the cost of transporting rice to bring to Cameroon. So we don't even have the competitive edge. So how do we expect smallholders farmers to succeed and build models that really work, that truly work? So I'm here today to speak on behalf of the farmers and also as a consultant, because I'm from these two dimensions. I was a farmer, my parents are still farmers and they're still struggling. So I'm here today to hustle. I'm here today to speak to you. I'm here today to give them a better life because they are still struggling. So we have all the stakeholders here. I want to thank you all. And I want to say this, it's your responsibility. Let's look at real solutions for Africa. And the solution we need for Africa are developmental projects. Developmental projects, not aid, not workshops, not these conferences, we've had them thousands, countless of them. But in Rwanda today, we've seen development, we've seen growth, and the country has transformed. So what we need in Africa, developmental projects, one, we need farm to market roads. It's very important. It eases, it helps the farmers. The next thing we need is warehouses, storage houses. It's very important. Food processing, we need to get industries to process food home. We talk about the inter-African trade, free trade zone. And do you know we don't have railways to carry the food to this country? So we are expected to carry food from Cameroon to Ghana and Ethiopia on vehicles. How do we do that? Why do we sit and tell lies to ourselves and say there's a free trade zone and it's going to boost the economy and all of that? How do we say that? It's a lie. You cannot transport goods in bulk with vehicles. Tell me a railway that connects Cameroon to Ghana to Nigeria, because this is the way. Tell me shipping lines that truly work. Today you want to export as a smallholder, you gather there are cooperatives. We talk about cooperatives. There are cooperatives who want to sell abroad. How do they do it? They have perishable goods, they put in ships, and the ships will stay somewhere for weeks and it gets bad. People have tried this and it failed. So farmers remain poor and they suffer. So we are all here, and my appeal to you is we can do something about this. And lastly to the youth, I'm a young person. I think I'm maybe the youngest here. I don't know. I'm a young person. I want the youth to wave. I mean, I need to see you. Okay. I want to say this. The average age of a farmer in Africa is 65 years. It means in future we'll not have farmers again. Yes, it's a fact. You can check online. We the youth don't like farming. Like my mentor, so somebody I look up to, he rightly said, we have to change the perception about agriculture. And those who want to do, those who have to farm are people who are intellectuals, because farming has transformed, it has changed. There is climate change, there's chemicals, there's so many things happening now. Farming now is for the intellectuals. And that is why Israel today, go and check online, 90% of the farmers in Israel are from the agricultural background. It's a fact, we have people from there. 90% of farmers are from that background, which means they bring innovation, they bring skills. So we the youth are the future to transform, to develop business models, to become the next smallholder farmers. But this time we'll be doing it differently. We'll be doing it with knowledge, with purpose. Before we start, there's a business plan. We are market oriented. We know what we are doing. When somebody comes to you as a middleman wants to do, you tell them, no, I know what I'm doing. I've done my mathematics. This is what I'm expecting to get. You will be able to decide whether you're going to use organic or inorganic. We are having an argument about that already. But you will be able to do that because based on your complete or partial budgeting, you will know which one to use. Okay, if I'm buying a bag of fertilizer in my country now, it's 45,000 pounds for inorganic, 45 for one bag, that's about 50 kilogram. Now, do you know that with 45,000 you can buy 45 bags of poultry droplets? Because one bag in my country is 1,000 pounds, you can buy 45 bags. But the rural farmers continue to use inorganic. I'm not saying maybe there are benefits, but I'm saying that as youths we'll be able to decide based on information, based on knowledge. So as we are here today, I want to thank you. I'm done already. As we're here today, I just want all the youth to rise up, to just rise up. If you're a young person, I don't know, rise up. Rise up. Some youths are not standing. Some youths are not standing. I want all the youth to rise up. Please stand on your feet, stand on your feet. Stand on your feet. Let's warm our hands and clap the farmers. Because we are the next generation. We are the next generation to transform agriculture. Not that our parents, they are old. We have to take over. We have to plan and put ourselves online. Clap yourself. Warm your hands. Warm your hands. Warm your hands. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. My name is Jifoti Prince. I remain your humble celebrity farmer. Thank you.
But I want to highlight something. I like my mother tongue. I'm going to loosely translate this. They say if you want to heal something, put it out in the public. So the best way to solve a problem is to put it out there so people can see there's a problem. It's like a stone that you have seen that won't break your toe. So don't be disheartened that Africa has multitude of challenges. Within challenges, we have opportunities. And I'm thinking this is the right way to go. I will invite Dr. Wilson to join me on the platform. He is an academic, so he's going to give us a different perspective from the Rwanda Institute of Conservation Agriculture. Thank you, Wilson.
Thank you very much. A very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the last presentation of the afternoon session. And I'll give a little bit of introduction while they are preparing my slides. As I have been introduced, I am Daniel Wilson Tietabula. I am an academic working for the Rwanda Institute for Conservation Agriculture. At this institution, we do training at an undergraduate level, at the bachelor degrees level. The future entrepreneurs in agriculture. This is actually our overarching strategic objective. We do use a very unique experiential learning pedagogy to walk through young ladies, young girls and boys, a program that finally leads to the attaining of skills and knowledge for them to bring about changes in the agricultural value chains. So we are based in Bugesera, like an hour drive from here. So those of you who would like to visit our campus, you are warmly welcome. It is a modest campus of over 250 student body, and it's growing. We will have our first graduation in August this year. and we continue to keep on contributing to the production of the knowledge-intensive students in Rwanda. If my slides are not coming, I will probably continue with my presentation and probably to find me along the way. I have a presentation that is divided into 4 sections, very brief 4 sections. And the title of my presentation is on innovations in agricultural value chain financing through business models in developing countries. Okay, so I start my presentation with a presentation of the fundamental issue that I call a paradox. A paradox in the sense that we have in Africa and other developing countries a situation where you have over 40% of the labor force of the country coming from agriculture, and you also have an average of 19% of the contribution of agriculture to GDP. So here comes the situation where you have the labor force dominating the economy from agriculture. You do have the contribution of the sector to GDP very high, but the investment that goes into the sector very, very low. So this is the first situation that I would like us to think about. Here is the sector that is dominant. Okay, so that is the first scenario that I want you guys to think about, that you dominate the economy and you have your labor force into the sector or coming from the sector, and you have the GDP that is coming from the sector. That's the first scenario. The second is that you have the public expenditure very low. You know, if I use the example of African economies, you will understand me. When they met in Maputo and came up with the Maputo Declaration, they had agreed that African governments should strive to make sure that agriculture grows by 6%. And for agriculture to grow by 6%, African economies must have their budgetary allocations up to 10% directed to agriculture. But none of these countries have been able, actually only 8 countries have been able to allocate 10% of their budgets to agriculture. So that is the second scenario. You have an agreement where you want to have your agriculture grow at 6%, and you agree that you have to contribute or to allocate up to 10% of your budget, but you don't do that. That's the second scenario. The third scenario, which I call the paradox, is where you have the constant decline of the donor spending into agriculture in developing countries. Over the years, donors and multilateral organizations have been putting money to African and developing countries' agriculture for up to 15%. But that kept on declining, and it went down to 12%, and it kept on declining. Okay, so these are the 3 situations. And the situations tells us that there is little funding of the sector, while the sector is very critical, very, very critical. So basically what is happening, if you may hold on please, and go back to the third slide, if you can. Yes, so this is the, if you can stop there please. Yes, this is the first scenario which I explained, okay? That we have the sector that is dominant with over 60% of the labor force coming from, and then you have very low funding. The low bars, the bars that are very low, are the bars that indicates the amount of money that bank and financial institutions have given out as credit. Very little amount of money. And then the second scenario is in this next slide. When you compare regions, say Africa, Latin America, and Asia, you will see that the expenditure on the sector is also very low. So using this actually scenario, I want to make you think that here is the paradox. We have very low funding into the sector, and we still expect it to thrive as a sector. With this situation that we have very low funding into the sector, people started to think about different innovations that they can influence changes into the sector so that more and more investment in terms of funding can go into the sector. So they came up with the idea of doing a very critical value chain analysis. And with the value chain analysis, they identify business models, and after they have identified the business models that are taking place, operating in developing countries, then they identify the financial gaps that these business models have. Okay, and so after they have identified the gaps, they go back and design innovations for funding these business models. So in my if you can move the slides from there, please, I'll be very thankful. If you can go like 2 slides back. Having understood that there is very little funding into the sector, as evidenced by my 3 scenarios, then they do a value chain analysis to identify models, and these models will have different financing gaps. With the financing gaps, they identify the funding approaches. And the funding approaches that they do identify so these are the models that they are able to identify with their value chain analysis. And these models are very typical models in developing countries. For example, smallholding farming. This is a typical model, contract farming, very typical model in developing countries. You see, I don't have to explain what does contract farming mean, because it's very common. We do have cooperatives. For example, in Rwanda, most of the agricultural activities in Rwanda are organized into cooperatives, and we all know that's again a typical business model. And then we have agro-processing, which is growing in developing countries, and the farm-to-market facilitation of smallholder farmers, as it has been presented by previous speakers. So these are some of the models that were identified as a result of the value chain analysis. And now we see with these models, financial institutions are sitting down to innovate the funding approaches, innovative funding approaches. And with that, they actually indicate that this is the model, and because of the nature of the model, this is the type of funding that needs to go into the business. Okay, there is a book that is published by FAO and Africa on financing innovations, value chain financing innovations, and it has very nice cases that identify different types of business models in developing countries, specifically in Africa, and the type of funding that is happening in this particular country or in this particular region, in as far as funding is concerned. And the business models, as I indicated, the financiers are coming up with the financing proposals, which I call innovations in this case, and then they sell out these innovations. I have a few of the examples with these slides here, where I indicate the different types of financing innovations that are actually practically available in developing countries, especially in Africa. And the typical business model for which each of these financing innovations can suitably fit. So we do have different business models, and we do have different financing innovations for which these business models are facilitated financially. But if you look at the way these innovations are developed, it's like private financing institutions are on their own looking into the models and design these products specifically for the purposes of minimizing the costs and mitigating risks associated with disbursement of their funds. So, as a token of concluding my talk, I say, rather than letting these private institutions singly look into the value chains and develop innovations, the public sector needs to come in and do something so that they can minimize the cost of funding to the agricultural value chains. That's why in my concluding note, I indicate that we should have a private-public partnership where the public sector comes together with the private sector. On one hand, the public sector will have its own obligation, for example, regulations, minimizing and revision of some policies that will make sure that the cost of funding is affordable for the African farmers. The private sector, on the other hand, is basically continuing with looking into the value chain and identifying the gaps and come up with the innovations, taking advantage of the revised policies by the public sector to make these innovations affordable and very cheap. With this, I would like to end up my presentation here, and thank you. Sorry for the inconveniences that we have all gotten because of the slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. I'm going to switch the plan. I can reserve my questions. I'll ask them individually, but I don't think we've had enough chance for the audience to interact with the speakers. So I'll give away my chance of asking a question to the audience and get two questions, one from that side and one from this side. Yes. There's a mic somewhere. Please, to the point, please. So we can have some lunch. People are tired and hungry. And we are in agriculture. We are in the business of feeding people with nutritious food. Your name and your question, please.
Yes, I'm Prasidu Imana from UR, College of Agriculture, Animal Sciences, and Veterinary Medicine. My question goes to the first presenter. The first presenter finished with a farming model, and he said that countries could go for that farming model. But looking at it, I asked myself, and what is the practicability of that farming model? Mostly in countries where a great number of farmers are just smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that model farm basically is based on large-scale farming. This is the nucleus. This is what I call center of excellence, because we're going to do everything by the book, mechanization, inputs, everything that is the latest in the market. And therefore, the goal of the nucleus is to mobilize farmers in certain groups and smallholder farmers and around the nucleus to enable them to produce for the nucleus. So you eliminate or you relocate the middleman, because the farmer is going to be producing for the nucleus. The nucleus is going to train the farmers to deliver what is required by the nucleus, and therefore the quality, the volumes, and everything else. And therefore that's how, and eventually mechanizing the smallholder farmer. Therefore, I mean, we believe that with an efficient nucleus making enough money to sustain the project, the unity can benefit a lot from the smallholder farmer around the group, doubling or tripling the land available for production, using their workforce, training them, enabling them to make more money, and therefore you lift up the lives of the smallholder farmer. You don't like, I mean, nobody likes to have a poor farm, a poor neighbor. We want our neighbors to be rich, and this we can reach that, making commercial farming as nucleus, as an example for the smallholder farmers to follow and be trained by it.
One more question on the other side.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Hanil from the University of Rwanda. So I want us to challenge ourselves when it comes to this conference, but I'm happy that we have a farmer in the panelists. Why am I saying this? It's the keyword is profit, but profit should not sound on the side of the farmers only, but also on the side of the private sector investing in that. Because if the panelists who are there or on the side of the scientists, some we are in the private sector, we would like to make a profit, but also farmers would like them to have profit. How do we balance the two? Is there a way we are also mainstreaming the indigenous knowledge? Because otherwise it might seem like we go there as a scientist, we go there as business people, and then we make business on top of farmers, which will become somehow, because it will be a profit sharing. So how do we balance the two? What they are using to do, the way they are using to make their money, and the way we are also coming ourselves also for making money on top of that.
Interesting question. I think I will allow each of the panelists to give answers to that. Dr. Nimrod, and then Wilson, and then Prince. How do we balance the existing knowledge and the way of doing things with the new inventions or innovations into these business models? If I can summarize it. Yeah.
I see that. I get the question a little bit different, and please correct me if I got it wrong. You were talking about the value chain, and not only the farmer should make more money, but everybody. That is really one of the challenges. Today we have imbalance. We have some people making money on the back of the farmers, and because of this, farmers are becoming poor because they are poor, there is less agriculture, and everybody suffers eventually. So what we need is to have it balanced. We want the farmers to do better, but also others to do better. So investors would look at Africa and say, we want to come to Africa, we want to invest in Africa, just like 20, 30 years ago, they said about China when it comes to industry. So we want them to come here because we make a better business model. And I love the passion that I saw here. I think this is a good beginning. I love the way that people stand up and saying things are not perfect. We have a way to correct. This question is also reflecting this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On this specific question, I would say the most important and interesting thing that we should be thinking about, in as far as your question is concerned, is the distribution of the profit to each and every actor along the value chain. Because basically, each actor on a specific node of the value chain gets something. The only thing that we need to think about is the amount that finally goes to him or her. And this is what made Dr. Nimrod say that some people are making money on farmers. Why? Because if you look at a shilling that is made as a profit as a result of the value-adding activities around the value chain, if you look at how is that shilling divided amongst value chain actors, you will realize that some of these actors are getting super profit, and some are getting a big chunk, a very small chunk of that shilling. And this is something that we should probably be, and some people have been working on years and years, because farmers seems to be the only actors along the chain who are suppressed. They get a very little share of that shilling profit that is made along the chain. And that's a challenge to us. Thank you.
Well, as a farmer, I always want to be practical. If agriculture is considered a business, it means we should be at the negotiation table. If you come to buy from me as a farmer, it's negotiation, so nobody gets cheated. What we are having, why we have an imbalance is because we are not negotiating. One person is being exploited because he lacks something. Let me explain this. You come to me, the farmers are the ones who suffer. I've been with them. Why do they suffer? A buy and seller, we call that in our place, buy and sell, and those who buy from farmers. So he comes to you after passing through a very bad route, because he's the only one who has the resources to rent a vehicle. So he comes to you, a farmer who could not afford to get a vehicle, to pay for a vehicle. He passes through that very difficult road. So when he comes to you, he has the power over you. So when you go to the negotiation table, there is no way you can beat him. So the only way we can have a balance is that we make agriculture in such a way that every one of us goes to the table with equal power, equal strength. And how do we achieve this? We must achieve this. We can achieve this by doing what? Getting projects, infrastructure, the right infrastructures in place. For instance, you call me, you want to buy from me, you're a retailer or a wholesaler. I tell you, wait, I'll bring my products to you because I have a good road. I have warehouses. If I go with sleep, I will sleep there. So that when I'm coming to you for negotiations, I also have some kind of leverage. But farmers don't have that because they are so poor. So that's the only thing they can do. So let's look at the cocoa sector and be specific. $108 billion is being made as revenue in the cocoa sector. Now the farmers only get 6% of that money. Can you imagine revenue? The cocoa farmers get only 6%. Why does this happen? It's a practical example, then you see what is happening in the value chain or the food system. So the guys, they come to us, my mother, my parents, we are there. I used to be small, they'll come to us. What they do is, we don't have the resources to buy inputs, fertilizers, so they are going to loan you money. They are loaning you this money because they expect that you're going to sell to them. You don't have a choice. You need to spray your farm. You need to apply, make sure your farm is fine. So they loan you this money. When coming, they are coming to take their loan, to collect their loan in the form of what? Your product, the cocoa beans. So you, the farmer, you are owing them and you don't have the money to pay. So you have to sell the cocoa to be able to pay your debt. And something that is left, maybe a little percentage that's left from it, you have to pay the fees for your children. So if they come to you and tell you that, okay, I'm going to buy a kilo of cocoa for 1,000 francs, 1,500 francs, you don't have a choice. And if they come with a faulty metal reading because they have a scale, sometimes it's being worked, they have the way they calibrate it to cheat the farmers. The farmers have no choice because they have to pay their debt. So when the only way to have a balance is that we must be able to create the enabling environment for everyone, whether you are the retailer, the wholesaler, everybody should be able to go and do business, just like it's done in every other sector. Agriculture should be business. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we will end here because we are very late for lunch. It's a thought-provoking discussion. We are 4 people and we have 1.2 billion Africans as a share of the market that we're catering for, and 5.8 billion globally if we are to go global. So we have a lot of thinking to do, and this is what we need to have, thought-provoking discussions. A big thank you to Prince Wilson, Nimrod, and Marcos for their discussions. Let's keep engaging, and over to the MC to direct us about what's going on next.
Great. Let us give a round of applause for and the speakers. So,